Hi, Mystery Writers. Welcome to the Mystery Writers Studio. I'm Zara Altair. Today, I want to talk about your sleuth sidekick. So, you don't always need one, but boy, I'm going to talk about all the ways that your sidekick can really amplify your sleuth character and your story as well. And it's a fun character to play with. It's a traditional literary archetype and it definitely enhances your story. It enhances. Uh, the sidekick can be a working partner or a friend or both. And the sidekick's role in the story will vary depending on how you choose to amplify your sleuth and the sidekick. And the ways your sidekick can mirror your sleuth depends on that sidekick story role. And although some sleuths work alone, using a sidekick in your mystery can illustrate lots of details about your sleuth and amplify the story with a completely different character. Um, it's just a great way to really add depth and dimension to your story. And when you expand your protagonist with interaction with the sidekick, your readers engage more in the story. They love all that interaction, those two personalities working with each other or against each other in opposition. Um, the sidekick has a special role in your story, and it is to accompany your hero or heroine on their quest. And in a mystery, the sidekick helps your sleuth track down the murderer. They may have ideas, they can discover things that the sleuth overlooks. Just lots of things can happen. As I said, a lot of the sidekick's role is their interaction with your sleuth and how that amplifies the story. The sidekick, we want to talk about archetypes. The sidekick isn't necessarily a mentor. It's not like they're there to teach your sleuth new things. Um, they don't have to do that. No, their sidekick wouldn't be a sidekick if he weren't there through thick and thin, though. Um, so your sleuth and the sidekick have a connection that sets them on the trail of discovery to find that villain, that murderer. And even if the sidekick is assigned to your sleuth, say, they're in a law enforcement situation, um, they both are set on solving the crime. That is their main goal in the story. So the sidekick actually can help you mirror your sleuth in different ways in your story because the sidekick and the sleuth work together. They have that thing in common, and it may be knowledge of police procedures, or they may have a common interest in the film The Crimson Rivers, the original one, please. Um, Pierre Nima and Max Kakarian were played by Jean Reno and Vincent Cassel, um, are often at odds during the procedure. They have completely different approaches to how they go about an investigation, but their goal is the same. And then in literature, John D. MacDonald created Meyer the Economist to help readers understand Travis McGee in that long running series. So the sidekick holds up a mirror to your sleuth by highlighting the sleuth's strengths and their weaknesses. And sometimes the sidekick compensates for the weaknesses by having an opposite personality or style of response, just like I mentioned in Crimson Rivers. And and sometimes the sidekick picks up the slack, and others may not. But the sidekick really highlight the strengths by painting them painting them when your sleuth meets an obstacle. So sidekicks right along there when the obstacle presents itself. And it's a great way for them to reflect on the hero's actions, the hero's thoughts, and the sidekick, if they're different, how they would approach the same thing. All right. So let's talk about, as a creator, as a writer, what are some points to consider when you create your sleuth sidekick? You have a lot of leeway as you create that sidekick. They can be male or female, younger or older, or the same age, or new at the game, or an old hand, and it's up to you to create a sidekick that will accompany your sleuth on that discovery journey. So realize that however you create that sidekick, they're like right there beside your your sleuth, and their personality is going to reflect what the sleuth is doing and thinking. First of all, whoa, you want to make that sidekick distinct and very interesting character. So you give them a personality and one that interacts with your sleuth. So when you're working in your character background, the more details that you add about your sidekick, I would really consider also, as you add those details, you want to think about and make notes in your background about how uh, how those details are going to interact with your sleuth character, and what you can do, the ways that you can use those to build tension. Um, you want to build that sidekick skill set in the same way you create your sleuth skill and that is one way that you can balance it out. And if you plan on creating a series, your background for the sidekick is going to be pretty rich, because as a continuing character, you need to know a lot about them, because what might not show up, say, in the first novel in your series might become very important in the second or third novel. So keep the sidetrack from taking over the story. That's another thing. As much as we love creating those sidekicks, we don't want them to take over the story. It's fun to create them, and you may be tempted to let the sidekick take over, but resist that temptation. They're just there, and remember that the final solution must come from your sleuth. Your sleuth is your main protagonist. So your sidekick isn't the one who discovers that final solution. They may point your sleuth to that final solution, but the real discovery, the final discovery, needs to come from the sleuth itself. So keep that in mind. And you also want, on the other hand, to keep them connected. And so you can actually create, for instance, an antagonistic sidekick, but you want to make sure at the same time that you keep that connection between the two characters strong. They're always at odds, but they have that connection. Um, the sidekick and the sleuth take the discovery journey together, not separately. That's the thing you need to remember if you have an antagonistic sidekick. All right. And you want to create traits in your sidekick that showcase the discover the I can't talk that showcase the sleuth's strengths and weaknesses. I said this before, but they're just so wonderful for mirroring what the sleuth is doing, and your sidekick is right there gun ho behind them, where they go, I don't know, maybe you need to rethink that. All right. uh, so it's fun to create sidekick characteristics that are opposite of the sleuth and at the same time complement the sleuth. The major goal of the sidekick is to make your sleuth protagonist more engaging and more likable for your readers. That's their main goal. And in a character role and in the story role, they just deepen the story. They give you more opportunities to create incidents and scenes and come up with obstacles, because the sidekick, even if they think they're helping, is actually getting in the way or making mistakes. Um, see, Anthony Horowitz just came out with a new Horowitz and Hawthorne mystery where the author, Anthony Horowitz, is the sidekick, as it were, and Hawthorne, the ex-detective, is solving the crime. And they're just so much fun to read because the author keeps thinking they have the right idea, and it's just very, very wrong. So, side note, that's a fun sidekick mystery, and it just came out a week ago, a week and a half ago, something like that. Close to death. So that's a fun one if you want to see an example of sidekicks that work together for the same solution and have a lot of opposition and obstruction along the way. So just remember, your sidekick supports your sleuth and has fun developing the character and creating that extra dimension for your mystery. All right, that's all for today. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments. And I will see you next week in the Mystery Writer Studio.